What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. Welcome to Splash City. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to continue our offseason breakdown series with a look at the Indiana Pacers. They lost in the play-in game this season. They were a little bit up and down this year, dealt with a lot of injuries, obviously. A very turbulent year in terms of coaching because they dealt with the coaching change going into Nate Bjorkgren and then fired him after 1 year. So we'll talk about all of that, where this roster's at, trade rumors and stuff, and what they're going to do moving forward. So the Pacers are in an interesting spot because this is a team that has been, decent for the last decade plus. They haven't ever really been bad. They went directly from Paul George into this era where they have, Domantas Sabonis and now Malcolm Brogdon and a bunch of decent players on this roster. And they haven't really been bad, in a very long time. They've been about an average NBA playoff team for most of the last decade. They had a couple of years where they were, really good going head to head with LeBron and the Miami Heat, but never really broke through and never were able to advance to the finals or win a title or anything like that. So this is a team that, is kind of stuck in the middle right now. Who knows exactly what they're going to do, if they're going to try to start a rebuild relatively quickly, or if they're going to attempt to remain competitive for as long as possible, or, whether they're going to retool the roster with some trades this offseason, or maybe they'll wait another year. Who knows? This could be a pivotal offseason for the team because this is the first time that they've actually missed the playoffs in a couple of years now, and they're kind of having to stare themselves in the mirror a little bit and really assess how good, how high of a ceiling this team has right now. So let's talk about the cap sheet here. Indiana has, a lot of these players on middling salary levels here, between $10 and $20 million a year. All these guys are movable. They're all good quality players. You could potentially get something back for one or two of them if you wanted to split that money up a little bit and try to trade for somebody else. Who knows? All these guys could be valuable on a different team. But there's no real reason for the Pacers to need to trade them, anytime soon, considering a lot of these guys are still good for you, and you can be competitive for a playoff spot every year if people are healthy. So we'll see what they do with some of these contracts. Let's go through them really quickly. You have Malcolm Brogdon around $20 million this season. He is, he's good. He's solid, a veteran point guard to kind of hold things down for you. Dealt with a little bit of injury stuff last year, and he's still good, right? He came into the league at 24 years old, so he's a little bit older than you might think. He's 28. He's only been in the league for a couple of years, but he's still good. He's been good for the Pacers for the last couple of years, and I expect them to keep him around. We did get a report that they offered him for Ben Simmons. There was, Brogdon, and I think a first-round pick was involved, and maybe a couple other picks and stuff, and the Sixers turned that offer down. So that could be indicating that the Pacers are shopping him around and seeing if they can get anything back for him. We'll see how true that is. They might not be able to get any good offers, and they'll just hold on to him going into next year. That's not the end of the world there. But, maybe there's an indication that they are interested in trading him because we saw that report for Ben Simmons. So something to keep an eye on with that one. Miles Turner is going to be in trade rumors every offseason until that contract is up. Him and Sabonis, it doesn't always work perfectly, but they've made it work over the past couple of seasons. And I think it's fine to keep both those guys on the team. We'll see what Rick Carlisle wants to do because he's the new coach, of course. Those two can play together. They've proven that they can. Is it maximizing the team if they are? That's a different question, right? So maybe Turner would be the odd man out considering Sabonis has made all-star teams over the past couple of years, and Miles Turner's good, but he's not all-star level. Sabonis is the better player, so you might want to trade Miles Turner and see what you can get back for him. There's certainly a lot of teams out there that would be interested. We've gotten the laundry list of teams that want to trade for a big man, and so we'll see if anything's out there for Miles Turner, but he's going to be in trade rumors every single offseason. That's just how it is with him. Sabonis, like I said, he's good, made the all-star team. I would expect him to be safe on this roster there. He's signed for the next couple of seasons, and he's, in my opinion, their best player. Karis LeVert, brought in mid-season, obviously in that big Brooklyn Nets James Harden big swap there. Pacers kind of swooped in and took him away from the Rockets. Apparently the Rockets didn't want him, and he was really good for Indiana. Obviously he kind of dealt with them finding that cancer in him, and he was able to, they wouldn't have realized it if he didn't do the medical before the trade. So good for him to be able to, recover from that pretty quickly and come back to play this year. Pretty amazing story there for Karis LeVert. So glad to see him back on the court, and I thought he played well closing out the season. It sucked that he had to miss the play-in tournament, but I think he'll be around with Indiana for the next couple of years for sure. TJ Warren missed most of the year. He played a couple of games at the very start and really didn't play for the rest of the season. Had something with his foot, I think it was like a foot fracture that kept him out for most of the year. He was really great in the bubble, of course we know that, and he's going to be a free agent after this coming season. So I think he'll probably stick stick around. You could maybe move him at the deadline, if this team is not as good as they think they're going to be, around the deadline, if they're kind of far out of the playoffs or something like that. You could probably trade TJ Warren and get a good haul back for him. Think about how, maybe what Norman Powell got at the deadline last year is what I'm thinking. They traded him straight up for Gary Trent. You can maybe get a first round pick out of TJ Warren or a younger type player like that. That situation is honestly very similar. Similar contract value, going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Similar type of player. So that's kind of what I see coming for TJ Warren. I wouldn't be so shocked if he was dealt around the deadline. Or if they're really interested in bringing him back, he could probably just stick around and they re-sign him in the offseason. Jeremy Lamb, $10.5 million for him. He's also a potential trade guy. He dealt with an injury, came back from that last year to play. And he was pretty solid, I thought. 29 years old, going to be 30 this upcoming year. He's okay, he's a nice rotation piece for you. Probably not worth $10.5 million, so, you can maybe trade that and get something else back. But it's not the end of the world. You could throw that money into a trade to match salary somewhere else if you had to. And I think he's an okay piece. So, he's a guy to watch maybe for a trade, maybe a buyout if he goes to a different team or if the Pacers tend to struggle. We'll see with Jeremy Lamb, but, he's not necessarily a part of their future plans. Doug McDermott going to be a free agent. He could be a guy who gets a little bit of a payday. He actually turned in a pretty solid year. I've seen him, ranked high up on a lot of people's free agent lists. Very quality shooter. Every team could use one of those, and we'll see if he gets a raise there. The Pacers could be the team to give it to him. If they feel like they want to bring him back, add him to the list of guys making between $10 and $20 million a year. If they sign him to an extension, I wouldn't be shocked if he went to a different team. I think that honestly makes more sense for him and for the Pacers. I don't know if they necessarily want to pay Doug McDermott a lot of money, so he's one to watch to potentially leave to a different team in free agency. Justin Holiday's good, no problems with him. He's very average NBA player. He's solid, making around $6 million a year doesn't break the bank for you. He could be another, guy thrown into a trade there. Him and Jeremy Lamb could potentially get you something. If you're trading TJ Warren, you might have to throw in Holiday's money in order to kind of make up the difference there. So, he could potentially be a trade guy. If not, he just sticks around and makes his $6 million and is, solid, and there's nothing wrong with that. TJ McConnell, free agent. Now that's, another interesting one. He is one of the better defensive point guards in the league. I believe he led the league in steals this past season. He's very, very good at jumping the passing lanes, getting in front of people, pickpockets, all that stuff like that. McConnell's very good, and he's been underrated for a couple of years now. Very solid backup point guard option, and so, I could see him getting paid a significant amount, mid-level exception, maybe a little more, to go to a contender this offseason and really play a nice backup point guard role for somebody. I think there would be a lot of really good teams out there that are interested in TJ McConnell. So wouldn't be shocked to see him leave. Again, if the Pacers want to bring him back, they can, but having both him and Doug McDermott making the money that some of the guys up there, higher up on the roster are already making, gets expensive pretty quickly. So I wouldn't be shocked to see this team kind of back off of a couple of their free agents and say, we're fine, we're going to be okay. Goga Bitadze, Aaron Holiday, Edmund Sumner, all those, younger guys on cheaper contracts. Bitadze's fine, he's only 21, still younger, getting better. Hasn't really shown much in the NBA so far, but I assume he'll stick around. Aaron Holiday's going to be up for a rookie extension. We'll see if they give that to him this offseason. I thought he made some improvements this year. He was a guy that I liked in the draft, and I think he's, gotten better every year of his career, so I wouldn't be shocked to see them give him an okay extension. If not, you can, wait until restricted free agency next summer. That's not the end of the world. Sumner's got a team option for next season. I expect they'll pick that up. He was pretty solid for them. Good defensively, can do a little bit for you on the ball. And I thought, for $2.5 million, that's fine. Jakar Sampson's going to be a free agent. Not the end of the world either way. He's fine. 28, big man. Pretty athletic, rim roller type of guy. He's okay. Played a little bit for them this year. Would not be shocked to see them bring him back on a relatively cheap deal. Keelan Martin, O'Shea Brissett, both non-guaranteed. Brissett was actually pretty good for them late in the season. He kind of found himself in the rotation a little bit. And Keelan Martin didn't really play much all year. So both those guys non-guaranteed. I would expect Brissett to be back for Keelan Martin. Who knows? And on the two-way deals, you have Amita Brima and Cassius Stanley. Cassius Stanley, only 21 years old, drafted in the second round, got a lot of potential left, so I would not be surprised to see him come back. Brima is fine, but he didn't really get into too many games this year, so who knows? So this is an interesting year for them because, I mentioned this, but they did hire Rick Carlisle as the new head coach. and after having Nate Bjorkgren for just 1 year. So, it's a very interesting coaching situation because you had Nate McMillan before, and obviously he just had huge success as the coach of the Hawks, leading them to the Eastern Conference Finals. And when he took over, they were immediately really good. So that is, the Pacers kind of maybe scratched their head at that one. I know there was the reasoning to fire Nate McMillan at the time, considering that he had, been making the playoffs but losing in the first round a lot. And so, it makes sense to try to find somebody else, but Bjorkgren was clearly not the right hire. Obviously, we know about the reported tension between him and the players and management and everything going on. There's a reason that he was fired after just 1 year. And so, it makes sense to move on from him as well. Now you end up with Rick Carlisle, who was unexpectedly, now away from the Dallas Mavericks after coaching there for a very long time and being successful and, being in the NBA Finals and winning a title in 2011. So Carlisle is a good coach, right? And he comes to the Pacers now where they're in this transition period, or I guess it could be a transition period, or maybe they'll just stick with the guys. But, you get a new coach in there, a guy who you presume will want to stick around with this team long term. And you start to wonder if they're going to make some changes to the personnel, considering that, typically when there is a coaching changeover, that there tends to be some trades in the works relatively quickly. So we'll see how much say Rick Carlisle has when, in terms of the personnel on the roster, and if he's working closely with the front office to get some different guys in there. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them finally, decide to move some of the players that we've kind of been talking about in trade rumors for the past 5 or 6 seasons now, specifically Miles Turner. But also maybe a guy like TJ Warren gets moved at some point. Even Malcolm Brogdon, like I said, he's kind of found himself in trade rumors. Karis LeVert just got there, so I think he's probably safe. Sabonis, like I said, he's probably the best player on the team, is their all-star, so I would assume he's around to stay. But even Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, you might want to let guys like McDermott and McConnell walk in free agency. So this is a team that has, a lot of different options for them. Like I said, a lot of these contracts are very tradable. You can get something decent back for them. So do they want to go the younger route, or do they want to just kind of switch veterans for veterans and retool this team and see if you can kind of tweak a couple of things and make this machine work a little bit better? So we'll see what they decide to do. It depends on how much sway the new coach has in the front office and stuff like that. But I would not be shocked to see them make some changes this offseason, although we've kind of been saying that about the Pacers for a couple of years now. So at this point, who knows? Also, they have the 13th pick in the draft, so you have some options there. There's kind of a grab bag of prospects. I've kind of been talking about this when I'm talking about some of the teams in the late lottery. Once you get past number 6, it's hard to say who is going to go where, and a lot of it's going to depend on fit. So the Pacers at 13 will have their pick from a lot of different guys. It just depends on who's left on the board and who they feel like is a good fit for their team. A couple of options, Josh Giddey might be there for them, and I think he would be okay. Corey Kispert, if you want to draft the next Doug McDermott, because Corey Kispert even looks like Doug McDermott, and he plays, similarly. He's one of the pure shooters and is kind of a bigger wing type guy. So Kispert may be an option if you want to let McDermott walk in free agency. Usman Garuba potentially would be a guy that would be available for them there. James Bouknight, although I doubt he'll fall that far. Franz Wagner, I've seen linked to them in a couple of mock drafts. You can look at a guy like maybe Kai Jones if you want to go with a really athletic big man, although I guess you don't really need that unless you're trading Miles Turner, but even then that doesn't really fix the problem there with the fit with Sabonis. I don't know. Jalen Johnson maybe. Other than that, Isaiah Jackson is here, Trey Mann, Chris Duarte, Jaden Springer. Those are going to be the types of guys that's available to them at 13. Like I said, it depends on who's going to still be available there because nobody has really any idea, and who they feel like is the best fit also depends on which free agents they want to keep, which ones they're going to let go, who they plan on trading, all that sorts of things. So I think we'll see their plan come into focus within the next couple of weeks here, but this is the team that could really swing the NBA offseason if they decide to trade some of their guys because they've got a lot of players that contenders would love to have on their team. But yeah, I think that's all I have on the Indiana Pacers. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to. Leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about the Pacers. What are they going to do with this team? Are they going to make some trades, or are they going to run it back for the 3rd, 4th, 5th year in a row? We'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But yeah, with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.